Welcome back to MASKast. We are up to what we call this season 6.
Mm-hmm. Completed season 6.
That's what we call it. Obviously, everybody has their own calling for it since it was really technically two, we'll call it two seasons. There was the real series, and there was the racing series. We
The
have
real.
broken up our MASKast into series in that first 10 episodes, we call that a series, and then we give you guys a little bit of a kind of a recap of what was going on, what we were thinking, our best and worst moments, our ratings, and then we just shuffle on to the next. And it's been a long time. A lot of you have been very, very gracious to be hanging on with us. It's been, what do you say, about 2 years just to get through this 10 episodes?
Over yeah, over 2 years. So
Obviously, other things have happened. We have had other projects. I had twins and all types of things in between. So,
that's a project altogether.
oh, yes, it is.
Well, we're glad to be here, finally completing this stretch of the series, and looking forward to the last 5 episodes of season 1 of the official show, and then we'll break down the full racing series to end our official review. But we won't be going away. We've got some other stuff too. In the meantime, we're gonna try to review and do some other little special episodes as well as I'm trying to get to that magic number of MASKast 100. But
Yep.
uh, there's nothing really magical about it. We've had an awesome time. Gosh, how many years has it been? When did we
I
start
think
this?
we started when I moved here to Illinois. Yeah, Illinois, Maryland in
2000.
2011. The late 2011, maybe 2012,
Wow,
2012, 2012. So we've been going on for now 9 years.
9 years. 9 years we've been on this mask ride, and man, it's been awesome the whole
Yes.
time. But
Yep. We got
anyway,
to visit with good friends, and we've already capped and recapped our chats with Doug and Sharon and Brendan.
lots
Would
of
love to be able to get all the rest of the crew somehow on MassCast. Have that opportunity.
yeah, yeah. We did get to see. Well, we mentioned in the last show that Bill talked with Mark Halloran, so I know he's out there and available. So maybe we can get him on the show too and see how he came up with Sly Rax. His Jack Nicholson. That was a fun interview. If you guys haven't watched it yet, go over and watch it on Behind the Mask. But
Yeah.
would be fun to get him on the show. We'll keep our fingers crossed that that might be something to happen before we get to episode and finish this. Get to episode 100 and finish the series. But yeah, we are looking actually into doing some comic books
That's
and
right.
doing that second series of comics that came out in '87. There was 9 issues, and I think we're going to try to split those up in 3 issues per show and try to review all those and the stories and art and even the ads. I love going through old comic books and looking at what ads were in there too.
Yep.
It
Yep.
makes for fun, and uh, got us a little outline, so hopefully that'll be coming for too long as well. But let's how about we get on to the task at hand here.
That's right. Let's start the MassCast review.
Here we go. All right. Welcome, listeners, to MASKast 77 and our overview of Season 6 of MASKast. In this podcast, we'll be reflecting on episodes 51 to 60 of the Mask animated series, which will include our favorite and least favorite moments from each episode, our personal ratings, some polling results. And then we're going to, after we break out those statistics, we're going to come back and look at these 10 episodes and compare them to the first 50 episodes and those other seasons, as we're calling them, of MASKast. See how they stack up against them. And then we will, before we get out of here, we'll talk about a few of the special episodes we had in between this stretch. And finally, preview season 7 of MASKast, which will be just those last 5 episodes of the first season, 61 to 65. And then season 8 will be our review of the racing series. But before we get things started, I'm Jason, as always, and with me, my longtime friend Wyatt. How are you?
Good, great. And you ran out of things to say, or at least
Yeah,
our.
I'm running out of cartoons. I got to save those for our regular review episodes. So
Okay,
I just decided to bring you in without any fanfare this time. But glad you're here as always.
same, same. Yeah,
So yeah, like we were saying in the pre-show, this was quite a journey. A couple years it took us to get through these 10 episodes, and it wasn't because they were all bad. It was just life happens, and
that's right.
some life changes happened, and just other things, projects, things we're working on, and did not have Mask as high as a priority as some of those other things. But understandably, when you have twins, that could take up some time, and
Takes up quite a bit of
uh,
time.
COVID,
Twins
whatever
every
you want to
day.
throw in there. Yeah,
Twins, day job.
yeah,
Uh,
day
Now an
job here
addition on
too.
the house because we have the twins.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, but we're glad to be here at this point and taking a look back at these 10 episodes and compare them to some of those other seasons. So let's just we'll kick things off, and I'll let you take the first episode here, episode 51, Dragonfire. Tell us about the plot.
Venom is visiting Borno to seek a lost dragon temple. Mask attempts to stop them from stealing a black market fortune in jade as the temple reveals its hidden secrets.
Yeah.
And we had ratings. Mine was a 4. Jason gave it a 2. Our listener poll said 37% was at a 3, 25% was at a 4, and 19% for 5, and a rating of 2. So it was really all over, we'll call it the spectrum, if you will,
Yeah,
for
kind of in the
ratings.
middle, more upper than lower on this one. Threes and fours, kind of dominated there. But yeah, just looking back at this one, it started high and kind of went downhill for
Yep.
me. Felt like the story was spliced together too much, and nothing really stood out or was spectacular to me about it. There's a fun, well, I say fun, not that uh, I don't know, I didn't understand how it worked, but there was a little trick that they pulled with this oil slick and aura at the end, and it we were supposed to like I think get the Venom vehicles off the temple or something, but
Hmm.
then here comes the Mask vehicles driving right over this oil slick. I think it was with was it Steamer or Streamer or whatever Julio's mask is. I think they like used it in combo or something.
Yeah, they did.
Trying to remember. Anyway, um, but they, as with most of these episodes, they do have some moments with the animation that stick out, and there was a nice swooping shot of the vehicles in front of the transport plane in this episode that I really enjoyed. But yeah, those little hidden dragons in the temple didn't really do it for me. What say you about this one?
Well, like you, I started up pretty high, although mine wasn't much of a markdown. It was um, started at a 4.5, really. My my ticks or markdowns were basically about the call up. Um,
As they usually are.
yeah, and then there was there was a flying and driving scene on the field, and I think it was because, if I remember right, it was because it looked almost as if they didn't do the animation correctly. So it seemed like they were driving, but supposedly they were flying, but it just the animation was off. Um, they obviously mysteriously changed their flight suits, just like Superman somehow.
Yeah, they do that
Uh,
sometimes.
and then we never found out where the baby orangutan disappeared off to. I mean, that was the whole point. They had
Oh
that little
yeah,
side plot going on with the baby orangutan,
they
and
just
it just
kind of.
just disappeared. They were out rescuing it and found it for Mama, and where'd it go?
Yeah, I do remember that, and I I think it comes back at the end, or maybe it was with the PSA or something,
Could
because
have been.
uh I know there's some involvement with T Bob with that, but yeah, that was just a whole not even really have anything to do with the plot. that they just kind of let T-Bob and Scott do their own thing in this episode. So, is what it is.
And that moves us on to episode 52.
Yes, the Royal Cape Caper, which features Venom stealing the cape and helmet of Kamehameha the Great in Hawaii. Then they mass-produce replicas, selling them as expensive fakes, and it's up to M.A.S.K to stop Mayhem's plundering and deception. Wyatt landed on a 3.5, rounded to 4, and I actually went higher, 4.5, rounded to 5 with this episode.
Very rare that you ever exceed me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of episodes where we're close. Sometimes I'm a couple notches below you on some of these, but this one I enjoyed. The listeners did too. 78% was at a 5 or 4, and 22% for 3. Nothing below a 3 on this one. So that went over pretty well with the fans. So what was your synopsis of the episode?
So it looked like they actually had some very good animation. For me, it was a good bit of interaction. We found out the plot very quick. Towards the second half, the transformation I noticed seemed to be more improved.
Mm-hmm.
Then they always seem to improve, at least on the animation, not on the watch sign, but the signal. But
yeah,
the animation, they always seem to find themselves doing something, stepping up a transformation or so forth. They had a cool suspense that the radio breaks, and it's up to Scott and T-Bob to keep Venom kind of around, which helps them in their purpose. Sometimes we don't even know why T-Bob and Scott are even there, or they're excessive, or it's all about them, and they're full of the terrible roll your eye moment jokes, but a lot of it was clever. They even sabotaged the Venom vehicles, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I do remember that.
For me, like, they couldn't have. I don't think these birds exist. I think we tried to Google it, but they had these birds. They couldn't have come up with some kind of better, funky hawk or something. I don't know.
I do remember you talking about those.
We discussed this what looked like a pineapple bush and a pine tree scene that felt exactly like a half-minute waste of animation of time. That they could have explained something, or they could have had a little bit better scene somewhere. Mm-hmm. Then the attempt to drop the duo off at the warehouse. I mean, we kind of were like both at each other going, why would they drop the kids off the warehouse when that's where the action's going to be?
Yeah.
So
just kind of dumped them there. I do remember that.
But that was the gist for me. And like I said, I kept it at a solid 3.5, but I couldn't go any higher, but I did round it to 4. And that's where we landed. How about you?
Mm-hmm. This one had really good pacing for me. I liked that Venom was actually engaged early in the episode, and just a nice back and forth between the scenes, and kept my attention the whole time. And early on in the series, they were using more of the battle mode and defense mode terminology, which I don't know. I always liked that, and I wish that they would have been more consistent with that. We know that they're just consistent with being inconsistent in the whole series, but those, having Matt call out defense mode and Mayhem battle mode, I like that terminology. And then, just the battles were very satisfying to me. I remember thinking to myself when we got to this episode, it's been a while since we had a really good battle, and there were some nice aerial fights in this episode. So, just overall, I was really satisfied with it. I think there was just only a few little things that kind of ticked me down a half point, but I still kept it at a 5. So this was one of a couple 5s in this stretch that I had. We'll get to our overall what we did. But yeah, I just had 2 5s in this stretch, and this was one of them. And that moves us on to episode 53.
The Patchwork Puzzle, which features Venom stealing a Civil War era quilt that happens to contain a secret message to finding buried treasure near the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. It's, of course, up to the Mask team, rather, to stop Mayhem's plan. I landed at a 3. Jason was at a conservative 1.5, but rounded it to 2. And for our listeners, they viewed it as a 58% were at a 4 or a 3, 21% were at a 5, and 21% were at a 2 or a 1. So it went the full spectrum, pun
It did.
intended there.
It very much did.
And how did you feel about this?
This was good. Lots of Doug Stone in this one. We had essentially five agents that he voiced, and I just remember getting through part of the episode and being like, "Wow, that's a
Yep.
lot of Doug." He was working overtime, pun intended on that
Yep.
one. In this episode, there's some very good conversion sequence for Outlaw and Vampire, which up to this point we had seen him before, but it's always nice to get some sequences of the transformations of
Yep.
vehicles that are not very prominent, throughout the whole series. There was a pretty good battle sequence in this episode. Some nice sweeping shots of the Venom agents towards the end. So overall, the animation I think was really good. But I don't know. There was a lot at the end that just pushed me down. I even wrote in my notes, it could be the worst execution of a story in the entire show. We would find out later that wasn't correct because I did put one lower, but never explain how Venom chose the precise spot to find the treasure. Never explain why Venom found out or gave back the story about the money or why it was hidden. It was just real choppy and almost pieced together. There was Morse code in here, and which was probably appropriate for the timeline, but figuring out was way too quick that that Matt knows Morse code. It's like
Yep.
boom, like that. Anyway, it could the other thing too that just there was a hint where they determined it was Venom's fuel signature or something, or tracked
Yep.
it,
Yep.
and that's just came up at episode 53. Out of all these episodes, they can just track Venom at any time because of their fuel signature. So there was no mask use, and we got Viper twice. So that was no mask use on the mask team, I should say. But anyway, I just thought, there was a really cool backdrop, being in DC, and I don't know. I thought it could have went a lot better, but the whole I remember too thinking when they found the quilt and they're trying to line this up, and I'm trying to figure out, well, the grade or the gate or whatever that was that you had to put it up again. It just didn't work for me to get the pattern out of that. So anyway, I was pretty down on this one and thought it could have been better. What was your notes on this one to put you at a 3?
So I noticed that, especially during the first half, and the animation was decent, except there was this table lifting portion where the mask, they completely forgot how the mask even generated the power somehow.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see a little bit of Boulder Hill, and they kind of met up before they went actually out, which was becoming more and more rare, to see Boulder Hill even in it much anymore. We got to see the mask being used. The fireplace scene to me was actually great with the added stone chasing our duo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always ticked about how they run off with the watch scene, the watch sound rather.
Yeah. Gosh, did they ever get it right in this whole? I think maybe they did once
once. Once
in
there
this whole
was
stretch.
what brought me down. I noticed there was some choppy animation. It was like they were not as fine tuned. It was just that choppy cut and paste type of animation we see most of the time in the 80s. A lot of it they tried to do that with to try to cheat. Um, the the vehicle transformations were again decent, more so towards the end. Like you hinted, it was great that they used DC as the
Mhm.
backdrop. There was that Rolling Stone was a what just felt like they grabbed it from the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark
Yeah,
scene.
I do remember that.
The suspense was okay, but it was more like they were trying to kind of just throw it together and hope that it fit the mold or fit the scene well or the plot rather. Um, there were just a few things like we saw that Rhino didn't even use its battering ram when the boulder was coming at him. I'm sorry to bulldoze into the
Hmm.
garage door and the fence. There was just so much that started bugging me, but I couldn't get down lower because it was okay. Um,
Yeah, one thing I do remember now was when they find the treasure, the money.
mhm.
That was all Confederate money, and that was
Yep,
like, oh, that's it, and we're out of here. And well,
they just
duh, you
run
should
away.
have known. That's what Civil War era. It's going to be Civil War era money.
Right.
Um. Anyway.
Now, we as adults, if they were collector's items, someone might actually pay for a
Oh
decent
yeah.
price for that.
My dad would love a briefcase full of Confederate bills,
Yeah,
the collector that he is. But yeah, that just didn't sit well with me at the end.
nice. So that brings us up to MASKast number 70, which happens to be episode 54 of the actual series.
Yes, Fog on Boulder Hill. This was when Venom is after an older woman who was in possession of some $20 bill printing plates. And hungry to print some counterfeit money, Mayhem and his thugs attempt to kidnap the woman, who is protected by Matt Tracker and the M.A.S.K agents. The pursuit leads them to an epic battle between the factions at Boulder Hill. I guess I didn't think it was that epic. I landed on a 3. Wyatt was at a 4. Our listeners thought this was a pretty good episode. 77% voted 5 or 4. 23% for 3s, no 2s or 1s in this poll. So it was, I was at the lower end of the spectrum, as you say. Most people were a little bit higher on this episode than I was, but uh, this is one that we talked about with Bill
Yes.
in our best and worst little visit there. And what did your notes say about Fog on Boulder Hill?
Well, I liked the animation. I like it. I've been seems to be a running theme, but I've liked most of the animation throughout this series. There was a battle scene right at the beginning, which was great. It got me. It just grasped me for the whole animation, the whole battle there, really at Boulder Hill, which was great. They seemed to be Venom seemed to be caught off guard with the fog, and then seeing just laser blats and so forth
Mm-hmm.
coming at them. Um, it got them to leave, and still kept Mask HQ pretty well hidden, except I think if I remember right, in our season, I don't think it was our season one, maybe season two, where they just rolled right up on the joint. They knew exactly where Mask was. So this just kind of contradicted that theory.
Mm-hmm.
However, we just talked in our last episode where we wonder if this was all written in a completely different sequence,
Right.
and produced. So maybe this was prior to them. Okay, now we know where Boulder Hill is, and we're just gonna roll up and do whatever.
Yeah. There was probably several different writers too, and just taking the toys and positioning them where they wanted to in
Right.
each story. So yeah, not having a consistent writer probably throughout is why
Right.
some of these don't mash up.
I was let me see. It looks like we had good action throughout all of it. The duo were involved in a good way. They weren't annoying, and they didn't seem to be in the way. Even T-Bob put up a fair fight. I'll call it at Boulder Hill. Yeah, they found the stolen mint plates and the interest in Mrs. Simpson's car, which was uh, disconnected for me in the first half of the episode. We couldn't figure out why there was an importance for this car,
Right.
uh, but then we find out why, and that's where the stolen plates were. Um, Venom actually crippled Mask, which was cool.
Yep.
Uh,
Damage shown to the vehicles on this one.
but they were able to pull off the illusion is the ultimate weapon to win the battle, obviously. Um, my kind of ticks, markdowns was that um, the disappearance and reappearance of one of the gas pumps. It was like a
Oh yeah.
animation or drawing goof.
Glitch. Yeah.
Yep. Um, we also kind of have this disconnect where this Mrs. Simpson, she didn't realize who um, Mask really was. Although she was there, she heard the voices, and
She was like a babysitter for Scott or
yeah,
something,
she
right?
was.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
So how does she not know that?
and he's
So,
here at this gas station all the time when I
but
pick him up,
I mean,
whatever.
I'm reaching here, but it's like the Batman 66. We've got Aunt Harriet. She meets Batman and Robin. Looks and sounds pretty dang close to Bruce and Dick. So I mean, how do you not make that connection?
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, that's why it landed me. It was really those two that landed me on a 4, but it was still a very good episode and one that I revered, especially when we talked to Bill Ferris.
hmm
How about you?
Yeah, I it didn't start out that way, like you said. I mean, it was just kind of anticlimactic at the beginning. I mean, like I was actually wrote down I was kind of bored with the story, and even though there was a little bit of drama with her house being on fire and stuff, they'd already developed that Mask was on the way. So the drama itself, it was just pretty much, well, hey, they're going to make it there in time to save them. We just don't know exactly how. They are going to save them from the burning house, but um, yeah, I mean, it was just nice to see Boulder Hill. Like we mentioned, there's really only I think 2 episodes out of 65, maybe a little bit more, that really showcase Boulder Hill and its transformations and the whole nine. And when you get an episode like that, you're like, yes, finally.
Mhm.
But like you said, there were some pretty good battles with the vehicles. One was kind of indirect, where they're just kind of shooting through fog and don't know what's on the other side. So that uh, was okay, but I did like you said, was one of the things was we like to see the damage on the vehicles when things happen, and that seemed to work out well with the whole situation at the end. So yeah, I mean, I appreciated, like I said, appreciated seeing Boulder Hill, but the story just wasn't engaging enough to me to really give it a higher rating.
Right, but this was one of the few that we've seen in probably the last few series. We found some similarities to our movie script, and that
That's
was
right.
that it was set at Boulder Hill, and we gave it the location of Nevada,
Right.
and we crippled Jackhammer in our script, and we had even commented that we think we basically completely take uh, Jackhammer out. We
Right.
take one of the
Yeah.
people out, actually Bruno, and
Yeah.
then we transform Boulder Hill in our script, but we joked and said, "I think we need to go back and rework our script to add the fog function in there."
Yeah. That was pretty good. Well, let's get on to episode 55, Plunder of Glowworm Grotto.
And this also follows Mask Agent rather, Julio Lopez to New Zealand, where he is helping a local tribe preserve their land. He quickly discovers a Venom plot to steal pearls from giant clams that live in the nearby ocean. And it's up to Mask, once again, to foil Mayhem's evil plan. Well, Jason and I, both landed on a 3,
Hmm?
and our listeners decided it was 50% on a 4 and 50% on a 3. So it wasn't all that great. We would say it's probably like a 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of this episode?
It was more slow building, which at times can be okay. Um, I would like maybe the computer to scan the tracks that Matt identified to determine that it was Switchblade. It was kind of one of those moments I remember where Matt was like using his all-knowing powers and can sniff Venom's gas from a mile away. He can also identify Switchblade's skid marks uh, anywhere that he lands. But the jokes were a little overpowering on this one. And this was the episode where we had this trick at halftime where Bruce decided to take Firefly out of the transport plane while it was still in the air
Yep.
and just kind of get off track. And it was essentially his own fault for causing the drama at the halftime commercial break. So that one just didn't sit well with me. And the name of the episode is the Glowworms, and they use the glowworms to they call them out at one point, or they blow in that conch shell or
Yep.
something,
Conch shell.
and the they just show there was like a luminescence in the animation. There really wasn't, you didn't see worms or anything, but
No.
the main thing, it was more of a clam show than it was a glowworm show on
But the
this one with
glowworms were
the
supposed to be kind of like an arrow or
that,
runway of
yeah,
lights
that's right, and
leading to.
they really didn't pull that off
No.
in the animation. But one really cool part was when Bruce uses Lifter. This is the first time we've seen him do something like this. He used Lifter to essentially uh, grab Vampire and fly it right into a stalactite. So we had never really seen that before, where we know he could move objects and here and there and stuff with like boulders or something, but to
Well, he
grab,
even faked Thunderhawk flying.
that's
So
right. Yeah, he's done stuff. He's done some pretty cool stuff with Lifter. So this was kind of the first time he almost used it as a weapon, though, and purposely directed a vehicle into an obstacle to take it out, which was pretty cool. We also saw Matt use his Knight Rider watch in this episode. First time we had seen him do something like that, where he's communicating through his watch, which was fun. And then we also did see, and these were little things that I guess kind of kept this more in the middle and didn't drop it down any lower than I did have it at a 3. We saw Sly get his stiletto mask in the sub. It kind of came out from the dash, which was a little bit of a head scratcher of where exactly it's kept in there, but it was nice that they put that animation in for the first time, so we know, hey, he can get his mask automatically in the sub as well. Because most of the time he just shoves it on his head and slides in. But overall, it was just, again, I was in the middle on this one. There's some good things and there's some other bad things that kind of pulled it down, so left me in the middle. What about you?
well, it started out with some good animation. We had actually a comical call up. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know we got a few chuckles out of the call ups.
Mm.
We got that kind of suspense with the sleeping gas, following by the fact that they know it's Venom, just can't put their finger on what they're exactly after. Um, Scott finally has a reason after so many episodes to stay behind without whining, and it's due to girl hormones, which is hilarious. Um, there was kind of a misnomer with the name of Firefly, because if you remember, they referenced Firefly, and it sounded like they were talking about the M.A.S.K transport plane and not Firefly the
Oh,
car.
I do remember you got that. You heard that, and it sounded a little bit
Right.
confusing. Yeah.
There was also some of the vocal expressions I marked up that seemed to be off. Like it was, was it Mark's voice? Someone was off. Like they goofed up on like Dagger's voice or something like that. Um, I liked that they had a good setup. The setup of the heritage for the tribe. but the mystery that only the uncle or slash grandfather knew seemed a little rough for me.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the glowworms. Venom's role, they actually had a purpose. Um, and, Miles is always threatening them as usual. Um, I started knocking it lower because there was a lack of commands happening towards the end. So, like, mask on, there was no mask, no defense mode or whatever. It was just kind of automated, like
Yeah.
they seemed to be a trending
Yeah. Just
to do.
not consistent. Yeah.
Nope. Um, I kept thinking that the girl kept saying uncle, but then later she turned it into grandfather.
Grandfather.
That's
Yeah.
why I had it flip flopped in my notes that is this a uncle, grandfather? So I just did the uncle slash grandfather because I didn't know who it was supposed
Yeah.
to be. Um, but obviously that's a quick runaway, and we still were left with which was the Firefly they were referencing, the car or the transport plane. But that's what ultimately got me down and hovered it out of 3.
Mhm.
That leads us to episode 56.
Oh gosh, you want me to go first on this one? Uh, 56 was Stone Trees, which follows mask agent Jacques Lafleur, who finds a stone tree inscribed with strange symbols. Venom later steals the tree, hoping it'll lead them to a golden Indian totem pole. Wyatt was at a 2 on this one, probably one of your lowest, if not the lowest. And I was at a 1. And in my notes, I was already at a 1.5 at halftime of this episode. And at the end, I voted 1 just because we never established a 0 on the Maskometer. It was just the worst of the worst. And I remember going back in the next episode and going back and watching Panda Power to see which one was going to be my lower one, and this one ended up being that.
Yep.
The listener poll, 67% voted for 3, and then we had 23%. The other portion of that voted 2 or 1. So there was no 4s, there was no 5s. So pretty much agreed across the board that this was either okay or bad, and I was more on the very bad side. But I'll let you talk it up first before I pull it back down. Well, maybe you can't because you were at a 2 as
I
well.
was at
So
it too. It's hard for me to find the ones, but nonetheless, the story was good with the legend of this golden totem pole. Got to see a very cool call up from Thunderhawk using the dual monitor. We actually got to see 2. We usually see 1 of the 2.
I remember that.
We got to see a ski mode option in Thunderhawk, which
That's
was
right.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. But we even mentioned that it is a jet underneath. Why couldn't have they used the jet engines and done a better rescue? It was a bit of a disconnect, but also kind of cool because we get to see there's a ski mode just like Kit and the General Lee. Just saying. Um, we did harp on that though, thinking that maybe because of the animation, the trees were supposed to be closer than what they appeared to be to Thunderhawk, and that might have given us the wrong impression why they did the ski mode versus jet
Mm-hmm.
mode. We saw a lot of the duo.
A
Um,
lot.
yep.
This
T
was
Bob was
essentially their episode.
T Bob's complaining got old, and that was before the first half ended. Um, we do see some kind of spy lurking about, which was kind of suspenseful. We didn't know what he was doing. We both came to the conclusion before going on that it was going to be probably a Venom spy, but we weren't 100% on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there was this Black Bear scene that led up to the commercial that was what? It was kind of one of those where it was the suspense was not great to get to the
Yeah,
commercial break that we always see.
it was pretty ridiculous.
And then uh, it seemed like Venom came late to the scene towards the latter half. We got to see Jackhammer. No, I'm sorry. We got to see Outlaw at work along with
Stinger.
Stinger or Scorpion digging
Mm-hmm.
up that totem pole. There was a volcano that I saw. That was one of my markdowns. I saw a volcano at the beginning of the episode, and we didn't see it after that. It was kind of like a backdrop item. Um, just didn't see where its purpose was. Um,
Where was this one at? Was it in America?
no, I don't think they landed on where it was. It was a Native American, or maybe an Aborigines of some country.
Yeah, I think what I was, now that you mentioned that volcano, it was kind of like, hey, we're in America. We don't have volcanoes in the middle of forests, whatever. It just didn't, I don't know.
No, but this no, not a volcano mountain. We saw the volcano van sitting in the background,
Oh,
but we
okay.
never saw what it was used for. They never used it. At least I don't remember
That's,
seeing it.
yeah. He had it. And was this the one too where it's going down the highway and it's doing that ridiculous spinning motion? I think it was
Was it?
this episode.
Yeah, it was, and I don't have it marked down, but yes, it
You know,
was like going too fast, get the guy dizzy.
yeah, it was like he was, they were showing it was basically showing off what the toy can do,
Yeah,
but it was just kind of ridiculous going down the highway at a 50 miles an hour, and the thing is you know zipping around.
right. Um, there's a couple comical moments, not many. One was with Nash was starting to be annoying, so Miles says, "Shut up," and the way he did it was I got a chuckle out of.
Hmm.
There was a point where it sounded like, is it Mark? Is it Mark that voices T-Bob? Can't
That's
remember.
Graham
Graham.
does
It sounded
T-Bob.
like he was away from the mic. Is what it sounded like to me for or maybe a bad edit when they were recording
Hmm.
it. There was the disappointment of finding out that the totem is amber rather than gold was kind of fitting for Venom because they go after gold and they find out it's
They're
nothing.
taking chances, yeah. And
Like the Confederate, bills. They're like, oh, we can get a treasure. It's Confederate. Oh, it's not worth anything. Um,
yeah, let's get out of
so
here.
so yeah, that's what brought me down. I was not as engaged with this episode. The all the disconnects, and that's what kept me at 2. I don't know that I could have gotten any lower, but it was starting to get there if I remember right. How about you? What was your, or I
Yeah,
dare
it
ask, what was your
it
moments?
it was just pulled down so much. And again, at halftime, I had just, it never occurred to me that this could happen. That the best part, or the part that I enjoyed the most, was T-Bob's jokes. While the story might have been a little choppy here and there, the dialogue writing, I thought was great, and I was laughing. I mean, it wasn't actual puns that he just hammers us with the whole time. It was actual, like, fun jokes, and it connected with me. And but it being Mask and having no mask use, having a no battle at the end, and a makeshift story with a bunch of rescues kind of strung together, it just did not do the trick for me. The animation wasn't on par. We talked about that ridiculous shot with Volcano. There was a shot of Thunderhawk driving in that forest that he just looked like a Matchbox car. It was
Yep.
not to scale. And when they got out of Thunderhawk, the doors were like really, really skinny, and it just was not drawn well. And there's that one point too when they first show Venom. Switchblade looks about half the size of Stinger. It was like they forgot to put it in there. Oh, hey, we've got Switchblade in this episode. Quick, draw it in. Find some room. um, it was just some bad decisions, I think, made in the animation department. And then the whole bear thing was just ridiculous. Just hop on T-Bob and get the heck out of Dodge. He's a scooter, and y'all are running from a bear, and you had this, thing at the end with this log, and I don't know, did not work for me. And one thing that really threw me off with this episode, back in the 80s, we've got to have some kind of valuable content connected with this story. That's
Right.
why we got the PSAs, to have all these little safety tips and things to help bring the kids' minds into reality for a little bit. And what does Scott do in this episode? T-Bob's up a freaking tree and just takes off his safety belt, and he goes tumbling down this tree. Bam. I'm like, this is not teaching kids what you want to teach kids if you're messing with. I know he's just a robot, but he's always the one that gets into trouble in those little PSAs, and Scott comes to help him. And this time he's just, all right, we're just gonna let T-Bob crash and burn on this one. Anyway, there was no real resolution to Venom's getaway.
No.
And like I wrote here, for all we know, Dagger's still running in the woods somewhere, and Jackhammer has the keys in it for somebody to steal, just kind of sitting out there. So he took off, left his vehicle sitting there. So stuff like that just kind of annoys me, and it just kept on piling on and piling on this episode. Just even finding the golden totem, that there's supposed to be these symbols, and we never learned how they kind of triangulated the position of, well, the golden totem should be here. Oh, why don't you check the bottom of this log pile? And there it was. I mean,
Yep.
It just, I don't know, didn't make sense. So that's all. That's the last time I'm going to talk about stone trees. Episode 57, Incident in Istanbul.
Which follows Venom, who hijacks an armored car in Istanbul, stealing Constantine's chess set, which contains secrets to finding his golden crown. Once again, it's up to M.A.S.K to stop Mayhem and his crew. Our ratings, mine was a 4.5, rounded up to 5. Jason was a little on the lower side to a 3. And our listeners decided it was 50% voted it as a 3, 33% voted it as a 5, and 17% voted as a 1. So we skipped the even numbers there for some reason.
We did, yeah.
And let's see if this is a little bit more sunny skies. Messed up with a 3 from Jason.
It was. The listeners were kind of on my side there. The majority of them with the 3. Again, this was just another episode that could have been set up to make for a great one, but just the overall formula of the story didn't quite add up at the end of the episode, and that's what kind of kept me in the middle. The battle could have been orchestrated a little bit better. We had Gloria disappearing in the middle of battle, like, okay, she's gone, and she'll meet us again at the end for the chuckle we have as we fade to black. They made a big deal about her sub, in Raven being an aquatic vehicle, and didn't use them.
Nope.
The animation was good, not great, but it was good. There was some nice. I always like the panoramic shots when they do these, and a lot of the setup in the city was really nice. And I noticed that kind of thing when they're trying to paint you a picture of where they're at, and the whole landscape. So that was really good. And just we needed more explanation on how Mayhem knew how to use this painting with the diamonds in the eyes, or the chess pieces in the eyes, and then they just kind of destroyed them, and they were, with that chess board trying to find those little notches and stuff.
Yep.
I don't know. It just was kind of weird. It wasn't a real point A to point B in the whole formula to unlock the puzzle, Masks were used, but except for the goop, they weren't used in battle. So
right.
They were more like tools, and they, that's not bad. You have these capabilities to help you in battle or help you do a task that you wouldn't normally be able to do. But I don't know. I like a little bit of both, as they're trying to thwart Mayhem and all his plans. You need to be using your masks to help your team.
Right.
And not just, like one episode where they're picking up pieces, and Vanessa's using Whip. Whip is more like a tool. She's picking stuff up and pushing it down here or there. And sometimes she uses it and able to use it as a weapon to knock people over and tie them up or whatever. But you got to have that, good balance. But yeah, I was kind of in the middle on this one. What was your notes about?
Well, I started out as a solid 4. To me, the plot was good, but in the chess set, uh, it's actually had some value, so that gave us the suspense we needed for what Venom was going to use, or at least attempt to use it for. We saw a suspense of the bridge, and then they lost his truck. The duo seemed to find or be able to be out on their own adventure,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not really all involved or bothering Matt, which is a good thing. But then Matt remembers looking at those locks. Remember, there's that remembrance scene that he does, like a flashback. Um, he remembers that there were different locks or somehow different vans.
Oh yeah.
The Something I noted that helped me with it is they started blinking their eyes, which you hardly ever saw in cartoons, especially in the 80s. That was just
Yeah.
they were zombied at you no matter
Deadpan.
what they were
Yeah.
doing. They'd be running, laser blasts at you, and they're still staring at you. Um, so that was actually cool. I loved it
Yeah.
that they actually started blinking the characters.
Little details like that helps out.
Yep. The call up was disappointing. Um, there was this waterfall kind of boat chase that was led up to our commercial break, but it wasn't all that suspenseful as they tried to make it to be. Um, they they omitted the assemble and approval of M.A.S.K when they're doing the call up. They did use their M.A.S.K, like you said, more as tools, not as weapons. Um, I liked the chess pieces being used as keys. Like you, I didn't think that they should have damaged them or anything, but that's
Yeah.
that's part of Miles's attitude. Just smash it up. I don't need
Yeah.
it anymore.
Use it and get it out of my way.
That's it. And that escalated me up to a 4.5 because of what they were doing, and I brought it up to 5. And that leads us on to episode 58.
Yes, the Creeping Desert, which involved a corrupt landowner who hires Venom to destroy land in Acapulco, Mexico, rendering it worthless patches of desert. The landowner then buys the land real cheap to restore it later with this advanced hydration machine that Venom has. Of course, it's up to M.A.S.K to infiltrate the plan and stop them. We were right on spot here together, 4.5, rounded to 5, both of us. And the listeners agreed. 86% voted a 5 or a 4, 24% for 3, nothing lower than that. So overall, the listeners and we regarded this one as one of the better ones in the stretch. So what do you see in your notes there that made you stay at 4.5 and get it to 5?
Well, they had a lot better animation, at least this go around, and they brought back the real, correct watch alarm. That gets a high mark for me. I
Yay.
could get a point for that. Uh, they included
vote this one a 6.
really, yeah, just because you get the watch alarm right. Um, they include the situation room, and they actually use that. I always
Right.
reference the Voltron lifting platform in this, but that's essentially what it is to get to their masks. They had a good storyline that had some suspense that you have this land just mysteriously drying up. We got to see a little bit of a battle scene with some kind of clever flying skills. Uh, Only one mask use of Spectrum. We got to see some airtime. I think it was just airtime as the transport plane is just flying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they really reeled in on the duo. They weren't obnoxious whatsoever. They're, I would say, almost minimal in this episode compared to others. We got the Venom plot early. We got a pretty decent suspense too for the commercial. I don't remember what it was about. I don't have it in my notes. Um, but I marked it down, or started to mark it down for these little ticks, and that's it. The animation was good, but there was this cheap trick they did. Remember, it went up and down over these little hills.
Yeah, yeah, that was the one of the lower or one of the only markdowns on this
Right.
one, but it just did not work what they were trying to
No.
do.
And they also didn't have a mask command, spectrum on. It was just, here it is. Um,
Yeah, this was the one where they had the drama at the halftime where Jacques, I think, has Volcano on the side of the cliff, and Gory is barreling towards him, an outlaw ready to push him off the cliff
yep.
right as halftime hits.
Right. And if you remember at the beginning of the episode, we see um, T-Bob being used as basically a ride-on snowblower. But
That's right. Yeah.
Scott doesn't take these off. So later in the last half of the episode, that's what kind of helps save the day.
That's
They
right.
use
Yeah.
this as he does something with the intakes of it and uses T-Bob as basically a sandblaster at the
It was kind of, I remember it being kind of ridiculous that he was running with those on, though, or
yeah, yeah. And he
it
even said
was,
it. It said something like this is ridiculous. You should have changed out my feet.
yeah.
Something like that.
I feel like I'm in high heels or
Yeah,
something. I mean,
yeah.
it was something crazy.
And it was so close. Miles almost had that briefcase of money. And then, you know, Mask, saves the day
Mhm.
basically. And the PSA actually tied in because they talked about the allowance and how
That's
the
right.
allowance was supposed
Yeah.
to be used, or you're supposed to get the allowance for the snowblower and so forth. Um, oh, and we got to see Rax eject a do, but it seems to be more commonplace.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a really good episode, especially for our so-called season 6. What about you? What was your
Yeah. I was just very impressed with the animation in this one. And like we mentioned, not all the shots worked. There was that, driving over the horizon that just didn't seem to work, but it just points to them trying to develop new shots.
like?
And there were some great transitions in this episode too between scenes, which I really enjoyed. There was the focus trick that they've used a few times, where you see something in the foreground, and then you go, and then you're at the hotel or whatever they were at. So they had some fun with some good transitions there. Alex's reflection in the computer screen on Rhino, I picked up on that. That was a really nice touch. And I thought the story really worked. And this fun little machine, you had this Mr. Sanchez that was kind of the hired gun in this one, in essentially hiring Venom to work for him and develop this whole plan. But they just didn't quite pull off what I would have them to do at the end of the episode, was to capture him, where they just sandblasted him in his Jeep. You remember that at the
Yeah,
end? And they might have knocked the Jeep over, but they never showed Mask kind of capturing him. He just kind of ran off after that. But I picked up on a lot of Mask use, and the battles were pretty good. And I thought Scott and T-Bob were used really well in this episode, which held it back up there. But yeah, the other little thing that took me down from a solid 5 was those tricks where they dumped Outlaw in the river, but
yep.
they didn't show how in the world it got back out to be in battle later.
Oh, they never explained how they leave and ditch Jackhammer, or the
Yeah,
pulverized
yeah,
Switchblade is reborn the next episode.
yeah. They dumped it in the river, and I think this is the one where they're like pushing Switchblade, like paddling
Yes, they are off the skids.
Gory, and yeah. I mean, just that was a little ridiculous at the end, but what you said too really boded well for the rating, which was the traditional, what I would call the traditional call up, where you get the agents, you get their scenes, you get the Boulder Hill scene, you get the Voltron room,
Yep.
and the whole nine, and it was just spot on from what they should have been doing the entire series. So that really held it up. All right, we are on to episode 59, some more recent ones that we've reviewed. The Scarlet Empress.
Which involves Venom stealing a lost statue in Venezuela. And it's up to M.A.S.K to recover the statue before Venom can cash in. Both Jason and I landed at a solid 2. That was better than the couple episodes before, Jason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
A little bit
43,
higher, but
yeah, 43% of the voters voted a 4. 29% voted it as a 3. Identically, 29% voted it a 2 or a 1. And there didn't make any much higher than 4. So it stayed more so in the lower band, but it looks like it could have been like a 3.2.
yeah, probably somewhere in the middle, more or less
Yeah,
for everybody, and we were kind of on the lower end of that.
right. So what was your moments with this, the best and worst?
Well,
Empress and
starting
Crisis.
starting with the worst, I was ready. The first thing in my notes here, I was ready to keep it in the middle out of 3, but the ending of the episode and the PSA were so bad that I pulled it back to a 2. They should have gone back to the temple with all the parrots and had the statue kind of resized there. They didn't really they shrunk it, but I don't think they bring it back. I'm trying to remember because the parrot makes off with it, and either it came back in a weird place or
They
you know
anticipated it would land somewhere, but they
right,
never.
yeah, that's right,
It's
yeah, they were just like, oh well, it'll turn up somewhere. I was like, what?
yeah,
No, that's not how you you got to connect the dots here.
that's
Work with
right.
us, help us get from A to B. It just was the resolution wasn't there at the end. So anyway, uh and okay, so they were at the vacant house in the PSA.
Hmm.
That whole thing could have been, don't enter the house, it could be unsafe, and don't throw rocks or damage the house anymore, because it's still private property, whatever. It was just some weird thing about, he thought he saw a ghost in there, and then a rat comes out, and I can't remember what the supposed lesson was, but it
Yeah,
was just like this random thing. You're not teaching me anything by the PSA, but the jokes were up and down for me. I had more roll my eyes moments on T Bob's jokes on this one. We had a good conversion of Raven and Switchblade, which appeared to be kind of new animation and not sometimes the recycled stuff that we get. Um, how did they fix Dusty's boat? Again, it was incapacitated by that water surge,
that's
and
right.
we had that whole drama there, which the logistics of that was a little bit off too when Thunderhawk came in and saved him. But that was just another thing. Like, oh, it's fixed now. Okay. We got Samson twice and Gulliver once, which is just basically like we've been talking about the masks being used as tools. He's gonna shrink the statue, and Gory's gonna lift up something heavy. Okay, so there's just missed opportunities again to use more
Yep,
mask
yep.
powers. There's some scanning, and we never saw Spectrum doing the scanning. It was only the mass computer. Dusty didn't use his backlash to help him in his little situation with the waterfall. And I think one that really puzzled us was the evaporation effect from the
Yes.
waterfall. Like the animation didn't come through on that. It just looked like there
Right.
was rainbows up there or something. And it wasn't really until I think after halftime when they actually you see like half of the waterfall is
Exactly.
gone. So it just seemed to drag, and you know what all was revealed could have been done in like half the time. So it just kind of dragged the episode, and the ending and the PSA just put it in the towards the bottom for me. So
Right.
what else did you have in your notes for
I noticed
Scarlet Empress?
I noticed that there was a lot of, I call it fluff, with the multiple angles when they're walking up towards the temple. Remember,
That
there's
yeah, a lot of setup, a lot
a
of
lot of
setup.
angles, but you didn't see exactly what was truly going on, except that they were just walking
Yeah,
to the temple, which ate up a lot of time. They could have done something else. Um, we obviously know that they're after a lost treasure. That's a legend. They hope they'll find it. What's funny is, it's been lost for 1,000 years. Even the guy, the monk, or whoever it is, the villager that says it's been lost for 1,000 years. But now Venom magically just finds it and
yeah.
takes it out. Um,
Yeah, there's just no explanation. That's the thing. I mean, if you're going to set up a story, lost treasure or something, give us some clues on how they got
Yep.
there, why it's so valuable, and connect the dots for us. That's all we're asking.
Yeah. Obviously, the alarm was off, so that was one point taken
There
away.
you go.
And the
Yep.
call up was missing the computer command. There was not even a command, select the best agents. It was just go, let's get the team. Um, we could have had a good battle scene. I think we both said this, coupled with the danger of Dusty heading towards the falls, but there was no battle because if I remember right, it was oh, who was overhead? It was Switchblade, right? It was Switchblade aiming at him,
That's right. Yeah.
and they could have launched a missile, could have had a battle scene, and what? They're just gonna let him flounder in the water, and all he'll just drift
Hmm.
down river somewhere. I don't know. We touched on the disappearing act of the almost non-existent rather of the waterfall disappearing. Um, Again, another missed moment. Mayhem could have blasted Matt out of the sky, but he never
Of
does.
course.
Doesn't take
Yeah.
that shot.
That would end the show.
The somewhat clever thing was the ants. If you remember the ant trick
Oh
that they
yeah, the little trick that they get him to jump on the Venom guys. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
The anteater that followed them around for half the episode.
And then
Yeah.
Calhoun is like hanging on the door of Raven, but they shake the car and he just wakes up. But it doesn't make sense. A lot of things
Yeah.
just did not make sense in this, and that's what made it so. Um, well, that's why we got the rating of 2.
Yeah, yeah. If you're gonna, want me to at least get it in the middle, you've got to have some cool stuff, a good battle,
Yep,
keep me entertained. If the story is crap and you don't use your masks and have a good battle, it's just gonna go in the gutter.
that's it. And that gets us to our final episode of our season 6, which is
Hmm.
episode 60.
Venice Menace. Uh, the plot on this one featured Venom learning the location of Cleopatra's lost ship of gold. Mayhem uses a special machine to turn the surrounding waters to jelly, which allows Bruno Shepard's Stinger, or Scorpion, if you prefer, to transverse and dig up the ship. And it's up to M.A.S.K, of course, to foil Venom's plan. We ended on pretty high note here. I voted 4. You had a 4.5, rounded up to 5. Our listeners were at 72% for a 4. The other 28% voted for a 5 or a 3, so nothing lower than a 3 on this one. Definitely a good episode all the way around. So it won't take us long to kind of remember back. It's only a few days ago, actually, we recorded this.
Right.
So, uh, what were some of the things that you pulled out to keep it at a high rating?
We got a decent amount of drama out of this episode. We got the visual effects that we noted throughout, especially off of Rax's sunglasses. We got some kind of reflection off of those sunglasses.
Yeah.
Um, we already know the plot, but there's still kind of this mystery of what is the blob is going to be. This jelly is supposed to be used for. Um, I'm trying to figure out what I was writing here. I say, oh, although I see why, I was still not impressed with the fact that Rax didn't see this gondola with as much glass as there, and that's when he's surfacing right, and the duo is on the gondola, and if you remember, the piranha sub is just a glass canopy. So even though he says in the episode to try to play it out that it's murky, you can't see, but I can see that sitting right there. I'm sorry. So you got a glass. I don't know how you'd not miss it, but it
Hmm.
leads to this whole tipping and a little bit of suspense where the boys are taken and dragged or caught by that rope rather that's hanging off somehow, and they go for a wild ride with Piranha, and Matt ends up lasering it off, cutting it off. Um, but it was still okay. There was no real significance on the first half, but towards the latter, uh, I even wrote it down as it was such a better episode than the last probably four or
Mm-hmm.
five. We had a decent call up, but I noted that we should have at least had the mask room somewhere. But by far, we finally get vehicle action and the mask usage out of this whole thing. We
Mm-hmm.
don't get one or the other or barely anything. There's a lot of good transformation animation throughout. The suspense or drama, that, if you will, with getting stuck or slipping on in that gel was real great. With especially, I think
Yeah.
Calhoun was the one that couldn't stand up on there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you got Gloria, already trying to not offend Moses by splitting the gel water.
Yeah, that was a fun line.
Um, they got to use that gel to their advantage. Venom, that is. They set this great animation of harpoons that basically blast as dynamite, create a crater. They get Scorpion with the claw that comes out, picks up this barge, this 50-ton barge, but it slides real easy, as they say. Um, Good battle scenes. We get this automatic seatbelt rather, and switchblade, kind of a cool
Mm-hmm.
effect. All but a couple times, I think only maybe once, they actually call their mask. And most of the time, we don't even see the mask come.
Right,
It
and
just
they
comes
did.
down.
Pretty much everybody did it. I think maybe except for Gloria in this
Yeah,
episode.
that's
So
exactly what it was. Not Gloria. Everybody else was saying Viper. There it is.
yeah.
Um, my kind of markdowns were the crummy, lousy, ever not right watch alarm. And like I said, a couple times that the masks weren't used. And the PSA, obviously, we kind of ticked that there was no connection
Yeah.
to the episode. And that's what I have. What about you? What's your ratings?
You
Covered it all?
yeah, pretty much got it. I did like I don't know if you mentioned the computer fade from Boulder Hill from Thunderhawk to Boulder Hill. That
Yeah, I
was
missed it in my
neat.
notes, but yes,
That
that was good.
connection of hey, the Thunderhawk computer's working, and back at Boulder Hill, that computer's kicking on, and they're working in sync. So I didn't remember them kind of tying those two together before, even though we always assumed it, because there's times where we'd be at Boulder Hill once he summons the team, and it's
Right.
working there at Boulder Hill. But anyway, the halftime rescue was a little off with the logistics. They were just right on top of the boat by the time Matt could get Thunderhawk in the air and get over there and shoot those ropes that Rax was dragging the duo with. And then there's this convenient empty boat that was there for them to jump off of and use as a ramp to go over that barge. So yeah, it was just kind of a little head scratcher there with the drama at the halftime. And I like you mentioned the reflection in Rax's glasses. I thought those were fun, even though they used it 3 times.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's do it again. Let's do it again." It was still pretty good, and I did like the ending. Like you said, the battle was quite long. There was plenty of mask use in there, and battle with the vehicles. That's always what we're looking for to kind of wrap up the episode. But the only thing that I took away was just the puns were wearing on
They're
me
good
the
about all the
whole.
puns, but this one was a little
Oh
bit
yeah,
more.
that was just way over the top. But the other action in the story was good enough. Like you said, the it was just fun with this jelly turning water to jelly, and you're disabling M.A.S.K from essentially having a strategic advantage, and they have the advantage to get this barge out and everything. So I did enjoy it, and was glad we ended on a pretty good note there. So, just comparing to previous seasons of MASKasts, so we with this one I had 2 5s, 1 4, 3 3s, 3 2s, and 1 1. So my overall score was a 30. So if you average that out, that's 3 out of 5 where I'm at. And Wyatt, you had 3 5s, 3 4s, 2 3s, and 2 2s,
Yep.
and landed on 37 as your overall score. And comparing to our other seasons, this stretch was a pretty down one. It's the worst for me. That 30
I
score is
see.
the worst that I've scored over the 6 seasons of MASKast for a 10 episode stretch. The only one above it there was 11 to 20 was a 32, and then the previous season from 41 to 50 was 34. My highest is a 39. I haven't even got to an average of 4 yet over a 10 episode stretch. But we do agree on that top one is episodes 31 to 40, which is your highest too at 46.
Yep.
So, what do you make of that?
It's I never think of our stats, but you do, and I actually enjoy reading them because it just kind of novel to see what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
My worst was basically your second worst, which was episodes 11 through 20. I had a 36. The next higher is only this round, the
Yeah.
most recent 51 to 60.
So those ones are pretty close for you on
Yeah.
the lower end there. But yeah, I thought was each season except for season 4, which was 31 to 40, I had nothing below a 3 that season, and every other season I've had 2s and 1s.
Right.
So the last one I had 4 2s, which was really low on the low end, but I had enough 5s and 4s to kind of offset that and to keep it more in the middle. But you on that 31 to 40 stretch, you had all 5s and 4s. So
Yes.
that's still our top. If we're going to rank in 10 episode chunks, you want to start at episode 31. If you're going to go back and let me hit some episodes of M.A.S.K, so start at 31, and
Right.
that's going to be your a good starting point. So, any particular moments you want to talk about as far as your favorites or least favorites in this 10 episode stretch?
I think our this last episode, episode 60, was our better, most liked episode out of season 6, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they seemed that, again, I joke throughout the episodes that they either have a fresh set of eyes or the old crew came back, of writers, one of the two came
Uh-huh.
back, along with the artists, and there was just some fun stuff. They added the reflection, like we noticed. They added more, um, some capabilities, but mostly they got everything involved. They got the Boulder Hill a little bit with the mass call up. They got the mass finally being engaged. They got the vehicles and the weapons on those
Mm-hmm.
vehicles engaged. Um, and everybody's involved. Even our duo, they're involved in some form or fashion. They're always really involved, but
Yeah.
sometimes they're actually better and more useful than useless with quips,
Yeah.
puns, and everything else. Uh, but I would say the best was probably episode 60, and to that end, all that they did for it,
Uh-huh.
the animation and so forth. My least is probably, like I think we both agreed on, it was the Stone Trees episode 56, and
Yeah.
just there was so much wrong with it. The um, I don't know. There's just a lot of disconnects for me. The episode showing off volcano but spinning like a top. Um,
Yeah. I
the
mean, it's bad when you've got bad animation
Yes,
that kind of drags down a good story.
right,
And likewise, when you got good animation and the story is crap, you at least have something to land on. And you're like, okay, well, at least it was good visually.
right,
When you got both that are in the crapper, that's just when we get these
right,
low rate. At least that's the two that are the lowest of the low for me. Just the animation was not good, and the story
right.
was just not. It was total crap. So,
Like,
uh, that's, I think, where those ratings come from. And again, on a bad episode on Stone Trees or Panda Power, I would, still recommend people go out and watch Mask. And if it's got to be those episodes, then so be it. But these are just a ranking, more or less, of the overall series. And I'm not trying to put Mask down, or even who knows, maybe those same writers, wrote one of my favorites, like Salt and Liberty or something.
That's it.
I haven't really gone back and look at what, I know there was a bunch of writers, but maybe that's something I need to do is, maybe we can single out somebody that wrote all the crappy episodes and blame it on them, instead of
or interview
whatever.
them and say, what were you smoking?
Yeah, what the crap are you thinking, man? You had all these cool vehicles and masks, and you just sat around the entire episode and searching for trees. Anyway, I can't remember where we were. I guess, did you finish off there? I guess with your favorite.
Yeah, I finished off.
Okay.
I think that you put your 2 cents in for Stone Trees as well.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely the lowest of the low. Just a couple of things are still disappointing to see at this point, and you're 60 episodes in, and you're missing a gas pump here and there, and your animators should be better at this point, unless, like we speculate, that the order of which we're watching this was not the order that they were produced, which would, say, okay, well, this must be an earlier episode when they're still trying to get their feet on the ground and the animation is poor or something like that. But yes, Stone Trees is just down there. But there was still some. I didn't really pick out a moment. There were some moments earlier on in the series that the first time that Thunderhawk gets shot down, we're like, wow. And I didn't really have a wow moment in this, but what I wrote down was I was just impressed that they're still trying to push the envelope on some of these shots, the setup shots, the reflection. There's I think in the Creeping Desert, which was probably my favorite of this stretch, where you get the reflection of Alex in the Rhino computer. I think you got a little bit of that actually in this episode, where there was some reflection, or maybe that was the reflection of the Piranha Subs computer off of Rax's glasses. So they're trying some stuff like that, and that's what really impresses me and keeps me excited for the next episode. What are they going to try to do in this episode to make it more realistic, or to kind of show off their skills? And I still see that in the animation up to this point. So that's overall, there's some down episodes like we've been talking about, but overall I thought that the animation is still there and they're still trying to be creative with it, So that's kind of where I left where we are. We did have a couple special podcasts in this stretch, and going all the way back to April of 2018 when they first made the film franchise announcement, we got to chat a little bit with Mike Quackenbush, and speculate about what they could do with the film franchise. Here we are almost 3 years later, and we still have pretty much nothing to show for it. They announced, what was it?
They had the director, and then they had like
a writer?
Yeah,
I think they announced a writer, and we've gotten nothing. We've been silent for probably 2 years now, at least.
Yeah, it's been so.
Every once in a while, it just kind of surfaces, and they tease us. Oh, hey, look what we're gonna do, and they just don't follow through. The money's not there. I don't know, with COVID now, and then theaters closed. Some hoping to get back going, probably once the vaccine gets out there and hopefully numbers start dropping, that they'll, and I think that's why they're kind of keep pushing some of these movies, like Ghostbusters has been pushed at least 3 or 4 times because of COVID, and it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's understandable. So trying to get a 35-year-old franchise going in a film franchise, which costs, if it is going to be a true franchise and you're thinking you're going to get at least 3, you're investing 300 million probably at least to get these movies made and hoping you're going to get your return. Well, if people aren't going to the theater and you're putting up on these streaming services, are you getting your money out of that? So it's a tough call. It really is. But, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm finally gone to the dark side, I think, on this whole situation.
You've been pretty pessimistic throughout this venture, to be honest. I mean, there's
I
a little
was
bit of
excited.
glimmer, like maybe, possibly, and then, like you said, it's dormant for a little bit. Then
I was cautiously optimistic when I remember when they made the announcement, and I was like, "What? They're probably not going to do anything with it. They're probably just yanking our crank again." But anyway. We shall see. But that was one of the special podcasts. The other 2 that were essentially special were our reviews at RetroCon. Some of our goodies we came away with, some of the happenings, people we met in the M.A.S.K community as well, and those were always fun episodes to do because I get so charged up, so ready to get to RetroCon. You're on this high. You're finding stuff that you never thought you would find before, forgot about.
Yep.
And then we get back and we're just kind of, sniffing the fumes of RetroCon.
I suppose, yeah.
And
but
just
then
on,
there was, I think it was RetroCon 2018 where I and Bill did our mock or faux, adult playing with toys little episode.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody was looking at us like, what are these 3 weirdos doing out here playing with toys?
Yeah, he might have been on with us for that review.
But it's also very, very comical that we were all that was the same time we went and had lunch at that restaurant, and we see the Cybertronic Spree, Hot Rod, and RC just walking across to their hotel. Like, hey.
Walking across the parking lot, like it's nobody's business.
Not that they can't really do a quick change somewhere to hide it, but
that was pretty fun. But
yeah,
that was an awesome time. We've seen Cybertronic Spree twice, but that first time was really great, and that was a fun con with goofing around with Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we promised each other that we're going to fly some M.A.S.K kites in the parking lot the next time.
Yes,
so
we did.
We've got it set up to hopefully get back to RetroCon this year.
I guess his last 2 cons we've done, we've somehow ended up pseudo dressing up for the event. When the A-Team came around, obviously we dressed up
all
as
in on that.
Murdoch, and you were Hannibal. And
God, that was so much fun.
Last year, what did we do? Or 2019, what did we do?
I had my little, or maybe it was that, I can't remember. Anyway, maybe it was the last time I had my little Stranger Things vest on and that trucker hat that I found.
Yeah, you did.
It was kind of Marty McFly, but not.
Right.
Anyway.
And we were thinking of doing something this year, and then they just quit.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see who's showing up to see if it's worth dressing up as.
Right. Well, it'll definitely be worth attending. Whoever's going to be there.
Yeah.
But I really hope that we're able to get to RetroCon this year. So, well, before we end, let's go ahead and tease season 7, episodes 61 to 65. Lead us off. What do we got on 61 coming up?
61, entitled Treasure of the Nazca Plain. M.A.S.K foils a plot by Venom to steal a prehistoric South African treasure.
South American treasure.
Oh, yeah, South American. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We're in South America there. Next up, I'm not sure where we're at. Disappearing Act is number 62. Venom steals priceless automobiles by shrinking them with a shrink ray. I wonder if Calhoun will be on scene for this.
You would think. It sounds like a Gulliver thing.
Yeah, trying to shrink him back.
Episode 63 gives us Gate of Darkness, which is Venom abducts a cobra whose hood shows the way through a maze that leads to treasure in the Himalaya mountains.
Okay. Then we've got the Manakara Giant, I think is how you say it. For episode 64, Venom uses a magnetic weapon to crash ships into rocky beaches. Local natives believe it is caused by an ancient curse until M.A.S.K discovers otherwise.
And then we have what seems to be a flashback, or at least a nod, once again to Indiana Jones. We get the Raiders of the Orient Express in episode 65. And that is Venom infiltrates the Orient Express train looking for clues to Mad King Ludwig's treasures. And that will end our season 7. It'll be a short-lived season 7. So we can
Yeah.
usher in season 8, which will be the 10 episodes of the racing series.
Right. That was interesting. Like everyone you said, they're going after treasure. And the two that I mentioned were more like heists. So we're kind of back and forth there with they're trying to steal, these automobiles. They're crashing ships, I assume, to get whatever cargo that they have in the ships. And we're still using maps and mazes and clues to grab treasure as well. So this will be nice, little back and forth here. But looking forward to it, partner. We've come to this final stretch here of season 1, and I hope the racing series, there's enough out of there. We always look down on the racing series that kind of went off in a different direction than these first 65 episodes. So I hope there's enough out of there that will make it entertaining for us, and I won't give it a string of 10 ones. But I'm optimistic, though. I know we're going to get some different vehicles, which will be cool. Hopefully we'll get to see them in action. It might be in a racing scenario, but we'll get to see a new batch of vehicles too when we get through that stretch. But
that's right.
But like we said, we're going to try to do some fun things in the meantime too. Review some comic books, and we'll probably come up with some other things. Hopefully, we can get an interview or two and get you, some other episodes in there, special episodes besides just reviewing the series. But anxious to get on to the next one, man.
Me too. That hopefully will lead us to evening out or rounding out at episode 100 for MASKast. At least that's our goal right now. And we've been on, like we said in our pre-show, we've been on a 9-year run with MASKast. It has been that long since we opened up with Meet the Hosts back in MASKast 1. And we will hopefully soon be seeing MASKast 100. And until then, we welcome you to join us, be a part of the journey, continue to collaborate with us over on our social media, our website, agentsofmask.com. And until next time, thank you for joining us and watching us and listening to MASKast.
And we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching here on YouTube as well. Those of you who watch over here and get the little pre-show, after show, we appreciate you tuning in for that too. Leave your comments here.
Yeah, please. And we know it's brief, but it's fun to do to help usher you in or just make you
a little
feel
behind the scenes. That's it. So, all right. Well, we'll sign off for now. Take care, everybody.
See ya.